There's the overworld theme, and then there's also the dungeon theme. This is of course not counting all the 5 to 7 note jingles that you hear throughout the game, such as when you discover a secret, when you die, or when you uncover a hidden weapon. That being said though, the point I'm trying to make with this is, despite the lack of quantity in its musical department, the 3 tunes that it did have were so memorable, so catchy, and so fun to listen to, that you just didn't care. Listening to Zelda's soundtrack was an experience all its own. Even on the 8-bit NES, it was still a joy to hear this music back then, and it's still a joy to hear it now. The one thing that nobody should ever forget is that The Legend of Zelda is an adventure. You take on the persona of Link, and you explore the world, trying to save the kingdom. That's all there is to it, and that's all you really need. Link in and of himself is an adventurer, and by taking on his persona, you share in his experiences. And that's what this game is really all about. Experience, adventure, exploration. That is what makes The Legend of Zelda a special game, and what makes it so memorable, even to this day. So with such a runaway success as The Legend of Zelda, a sequel was inevitable, and in 1987 we were given the direct sequel, Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link, for the NES. But nobody, and I mean nobody, could have seen just how different this game was going to be than its predecessor. And to this day, even though it was highly successful when it was released, people nowadays either dearly love or extremely hate this game. Now, as I've said, this game is a direct sequel to the original, and features the same Link, but a different Zelda. This Zelda has reportedly been asleep for centuries, and so it's Link's task to wake her up with the Triforce of Courage. However, standing in his way are the former minions of Ganon, who he defeated and killed in the last game. They believe that by killing Link, they can resurrect their dead master, and they will do anything if it means that they can accomplish their goal. Now, the differences between the games are vast and numerous, so I'll just go over them as quickly as possible. Gone was the overhead combat. Instead, Link would wander around the world map until he encountered a town, a dungeon, or a monster, and then the game would switch to a side-scrolling view, much like Mario, where Link could walk, run, jump, and swing his sword, while using his shield to block enemy attacks. Also gone was the signature inventory of weapons. Instead, while he could gain a variety of items, they were only used either at specific points or automatically when he entered a certain area. For example, the candle would automatically light up dark caves once Link walked into it, as opposed to having to manually equip the candle and then use it every time he was in a dark room in the original game. Instead, this time Link had a magic meter and could learn a variety of spells throughout the game. These spells would do various things such as allowing you to jump higher, shielding you from damage, or even turning you into a fairy so that Link could clear long gaps. There was also an introduction of RPG elements in this game. Link would gain experience points from killing monsters, and once he gained enough of them, he would level up in one of 3 areas: magic, life, or attack power. This was in addition to gathering the traditional heart and magic containers that would raise the maximum capacity. Finally, there were the inclusion of towns, which largely killed the idea of exploration. While it was still present, it was far easier to figure out where you were supposed to go and what you were supposed to do. In the original, the player mostly had to figure it out for themselves. Though they could just ask people for hints, the hints themselves were very enigmatic. Here, you not only had people who could restore your health and magic at every town, but it was also very, very easy to figure out where to go, because people were much more straightforward in their hints that they gave you. Now, while the exploration may suffer a little bit, I can safely say that this game is much more difficult than the original. The original was difficult because you never really knew where to go and what to do when, but in this game, it's just a hard platformer. Despite it being a side-scroller, the dungeons, surprisingly, are far less linear and much trickier, and a lot of the enemies in the game are much harder to deal with if you do not learn their specific attack patterns. If I had to sum up this entire game in one word, it would probably be perseverance. As I've said before, the elements of exploration are downplayed, though still present, and it's really a game that you have to persevere at, you have to persist in it, because this game will just kick your ass all over the place. Every time you fight through a dungeon, it's pretty much guaranteed that you will die several times, as evident by the fact that Link now has 3 lives before getting a game over. But persistence and perseverance pay off in this game, and there is no more satisfying feeling than finally reaching the end of the dungeon, taking down that boss, and then claiming what is rightfully yours up on the pedestal. In terms of music, there is a bit more of a variety, but none of the tunes really feel as memorable as the last one. They're still really good, and you can feel a lot of the energy that Koji Kondo was trying to put into them, but they just don't stick with you as much as the original ones did. As a standalone game, it is one of the hardest but still one of the best on the system, and as a Zelda game, it is certainly all Zelda. Very enjoyable and very faithful. It continues the story and gives us a new look at Link, Hyrule, and Zelda. It's certainly undeserving of any of the hate that the so-called hardcore fanboys have been giving it, and I still don't understand why they don't like it. While it is radically different from its predecessor, the fact remains that it is a faithful Zelda title that was very innovative, had some very creative premises, and was extremely enjoyable. And so the 8-bit Zeldas come to a close, but we've only scratched the surface of what Zelda has to offer, so please join us next time when we take a look at what happened when Zelda leaped from 8-bit to 16. Foul beast, thou art smoted!